responsive politics, the banks and auto firms that got TARP money shelled out $114 million lobbying Congress last year, and they ended up getting $295 billion in bailout money. Now, that's a 258,449% return on investment. It leaves me breathless. So with a payoff like that, what's to stop these firms from using more of our money to lobby for more of our money? Joining me now to weigh in is Republican Representative Darrell Issa of California. He joins us from D.C. Boy, this is outrageous. I mean, you know, this takes the cake. I mean, using our bailout money, which probably never should have been used in the first place, to lobby to get more of our bailout money.
Well, you're absolutely right. But, of course, Freddie and Fannie were lobbying Congress for their very existence for years and very successfully. And we have other scandals. The stimulus package certainly appears as though lobbyists were able to get special treatment for the national parks and lots of other special interest groups. As you know, some of these groups had their money pulled out, but it's still an $800+ billion package filled with nothing but spending. And obviously there's some tax cuts, and we'll leave those aside. But the spending is mostly spending, and particularly disturbing, most of the spending cannot take place in the first 2 years. So with any luck, we should be back into good times by the time that money gets spent.
All right, now you jumped right in from TARP to talking about the stimulus bill, or so-called stimulus bill, which people are thinking I'm nuts. I carry this around with me everywhere. They think I'm totally obsessed, like Markopolis was with Madoff. But it's just so fascinating to read all this pork and to have Democrats, still some with a straight face, saying that this is job creation. There is one case, though, that does kind of connect both what the TARP lobbying that we were talking about and this, and that's the case of Gerard Salami. Now, this is a guy who works for an organization called Clearwire, and he's apparently been working with the Obama transition team, advising them on digital conversion. And take it from there, Congressman.
Well, you know, what makes this so sleazy is I think the Obama transition team was probably naive in letting the fox into the hen house. This is an individual who, although he's been listed as affiliated with Sprint, really is a separate company, one that's not doing very well, whose stock price has gone from $32 a share down to about $4, and he has a lot of shares. But he's also a well-paid executive vice president there. This is a company that uses the new spectrum, and yet he, behind closed doors, lobbied to delay making new spectrum available. Inherently, something was wrong in what he was lobbying for. Either he wanted to give those who were already up and running an advantage, or he wanted to disadvantage those waiting for spectrum.
Okay, let me just put a fine point on it. Let me just put a fine point on it. This is an administration, Obama administration, which has said we are going to wipe out lobbying working within this administration, and they use this guy. We don't know exactly how, but the D.C. Examiner wrote a story that said that he's on the transition. He's advising the transition team before they came into power on issues about connectability and the digital conversion, et cetera. He's a former chief of staff of Congressman Ed Markey, and he is essentially working as a lobbyist for Clearwire, correct?
He absolutely is, and much more clever than a typical lobbyist, because he got at the table as though he was essentially, not essentially, but a consultant to help them understand this. And he managed to convince President Obama, when he was still President-elect Obama, to do exactly one thing that he said he wasn't going to do, which he said it was one president at a time. The one statement he made was the digital transition delay. He did that while he was still president-elect. So this was an amazing piece of lobbying to get President Obama to do something even before he was president that flies in the face of all common sense.
Now, I'm looking in here. I'm going through this bill, which I should know by memory by now. Of course, it's 700 pages. But here's the $2.825 billion broadband deployment grant program. Here's another program that has $600 million to educate people on digital conversion. Could this guy also have been involved in that part of the legislation?
I don't have any question that he has deep roots here in Congress and in the majority. What's particularly disconcerting is that we fought to get reasonable amounts of money for the the underserved and those who were economically challenged to be able to get these subsidized converter boxes when basically it would only take a matter of a few $1 million, 60 or 70 million, to satisfy everybody in the backlog. We come up with these numbers, 2 billion, 650 million, as though we ever needed these. These are ideas that were rejected over years of debate as unnecessary.
Yeah, if that's not pork, I don't know what is. Stay with us, Congressman. We want to bring in our panel, Rick Newman of U.S. News and World Report. In San Francisco, Victoria Barrett from Forbes. And in Orlando, Gary Kaltbaum, host of Investors Edge radio show. Gary, so this administration says they don't want lobbyists. We're not going to have any lobbyists. And this guy is apparently helping to write some legislation for pork.
Yeah, no lobbyists except that guy. Look, this is a cesspool that has been going on for decades. It's never ending. These lobbyists work in government. They leave. They go and lobby their best buddies, make a bunch of money. Then they go back into government. It is a